Robert Kiyosaki published a personal finance book called Rich Dad, Poor Dad. The book instantly became a phenomenal success, and in no time catapulted Kiyosaki to the world of fame. In one of his books, he mentions that there is a disparity between being rich and being wealthy. And he went on and said something surprising, that the rich have lots of money, but the wealthy don't worry about money. And I found this very interesting, because I've always thought that the two go hand in glove. That if you're rich, then you're also wealthy, and that if you're wealthy, then you're probably living a very comfortable life. But this isn't always true. When I think about someone who's rich, I think about someone with a lot of money. And I typically think about someone who's quite showy with their money. They drive fancy cars and live in a fancy house. They wear fancy clothes and eat at fancy restaurants. Growing up, I wanted to be rich. I wanted to own a big house, live in a fancy neighborhood, drive a luxury car, and buy expensive clothes. I wanted to sit in the best seats at sporting events and travel the world anytime I wished. Heck, I wanted to go to Mars. And I've got to be honest, some of those things still sound good to me now. Kiyosaki said, "The rich have lots of money, but the wealthy don't worry about money." I thought about this for a while. The wealthy don't worry about money. Growing up, I've lived in a relatively financially stable family. We're not rich, but we're not poor either. We're middle class, if you will. Both my parents work 9-to-5 jobs, and they work really hard to provide for me and my siblings. Somehow, they've managed to pay for mine and my siblings' tuition, while at the same time making sure we have food to eat and a roof over our heads. I can't say things have always been rosy. There have been months where money was a serious concern, and we weren't sure whether they would manage to pay for all our tuition, bills, and expenses. I watched my parents struggle, and I didn't ever want to live a life like that. And when I read that statement, "The wealthy don't worry about money," I thought to myself, well, that must be a really nice thing to have. Imagine never having to ever worry about money. Who wouldn't want that? I want to be wealthy and rich. So I decided to do a bit of digging to try and find out the difference. You see, having lots of money is nice and all, but I believe not ever having to worry about money is even better. So after a bit of research, this is what I found out, and I think this might surprise you a lot. There actually is a difference between being rich and being wealthy. The simple difference between a rich person and a wealthy person is that a wealthy person has sustainable wealth. In other words, a wealthy person will always be wealthy, whereas someone who is merely rich will only be rich for a short period of time, until the money runs out. I'm sure a lot of you have heard stories of rich actors, celebrities, professional athletes, and so on, who were once living fancy lifestyles, with big houses, nice cars, expensive clothes, and vacationing all over the world, but are now on the verge of financial bankruptcy because of poor financial skills and trying to sustain this kind of lifestyle for many years.